Hello, welcome back to my channel where today I'll be showing you how I turned a regular t-shirt into a ClownCore thing that I love. The original shirt for this project was from HMV and I got it because I absolutely loved the image of the grumpy bear on the front of it. But like with most unisex clothing and just clothing in general that you get from places like HMV, the fit just isn't really my thing at all. They're always incredibly long for seemingly no reason. And this is my size in case anyone was wondering, so it does fit in the body section. It's just really long and even the sleeves are quite long. So I decided to take this shirt, add some ruffles, add a clown collar, make the main image stand out a little bit more, and just make the whole thing a lot more me. And with those ideas in my head, I went straight on to the transformation. To start with, I cropped the t-shirt to the length that I knew I wanted it. I prefer very cropped t-shirts and I cut the majority of my clothes in the exact same way. So this is something that I've done tens of times before. And then I went on to cutting out the design, and I did this in a heart shape, and to do this I had to be really careful because I wanted the print to remain very clean and usable, but I also didn't want to start hacking into the t-shirt around the image because I knew that having the shirt clean would mean less work in the future. And I picked a heart shape for specifically this reason, as it meant that I could not only just follow the outline of the print, it also meant that I could fold the design in half and cut it nice and cleanly without worrying about cutting off any part of the print at all. Now on to putting the design back onto the shirt again. I decided to use the exact same method I used for my Pinkie Pie jumper a while back, which is a giant paint splatter. I think this is such a cute and whimsical addition to the shirt, and it also goes with the Care Bears. I love the Care Bears. I actually have two of them tattooed on my knees because I grew up playing with the little plastic toy versions of them in that big cloud castle that's still definitely in my parents' attic somewhere. I also have plushie toys that I really need to bring to my actual house because they would go so well up onto my toy shelf, which is just slightly out of frame behind me. I have all my favourite plushies up there, so I have some childhood ones and then ones that my boyfriend bought me, and then I also have my Furby, which is that thing just there. Anyways, back onto the shirt. To add on details like this, I personally decide to flat sew everything. I just find it so much easier than adding loads of seams everywhere, especially when I'm not really sure how you would even do that with this sort of shape. It's just one of those shapes you don't see people using that often, so you can never find tutorials on how to do it a different way. I will say that shapes like this are also just really annoying to sew like this in general. I had to go really slowly and use a really tight stitch, which also runs the machine really slowly. And I could have used a zigzag stitch with a bigger gap, but I wanted a thicker border around everything, as it makes it look more like embroidery, which is a style of sewing that I wish I could do more of, and I thought it would go perfectly here. I don't know if this actually counts as embroidery, so I'm just going to say it's embroidery inspired. Now we're moving on to the very long process of making all the ruffles for this. So a ruffle is made of a very long strip of fabric that is 3 times the length of the distance you want to cover. So for example, if you want a 10cm ruffle, you need 30cm worth of fabric. As you can see by the footage, I ended up needing a very long strip to cover the entirety of this design. And to make these strips, I used the excess fabric cut off the bottom of the shirt where I cropped it, and any additional length I needed was added using the same light blue fabric that I used for the splatter. This is a fabric I have left over from another project. It's just like a jumper material, so on one side it's very flat and the other side it's quite plushy. Then I decided I wanted all the ruffles to have a bound edge to stop any fraying and to hide the seams in between the two fabric types. So I cut out an even longer and thinner strip of light blue fabric, ironed them in half and sewed them all the way around the bottom of my ruffles. I'm so glad I did this because it really gives the shirt more of a clown inspired look instead of just a ruffly top, because when I think of clown collars I always picture them with a trim of a different colour on the edges. In a way I kind of wish I used white for the trims, because then it would go with the white on the edges of the image, and I really didn't bring in any white onto the rest of the piece, so I feel like white would have looked really good here. But I didn't think about that at the time, so it is blue. I will say though, if you want to do this sort of look and you're using a fabric that doesn't fray, don't bother with this step. It takes far too long to do on top of how long ruffles already take to make. Just save yourself the time and frustration. Unless you really like the look of it, then go for it. They do look really cute. It just takes too much effort, to be honest. Now to make these long strips into actual ruffles, I chose to make pleated ruffles because 1, I think again they look more ClownCore like, and 2, I can never make other ruffle methods work. I have tried the method where you do a running stitch down the length and then just pull it tight to create smaller ruffles, but whenever I do this they look absolutely fine, and then I start sewing them onto the actual piece and I just end up with sections where I have no ruffles, or I have sections that I've twisted around somehow, and I can also never get them to lay flat, so they always add a lot of bulk to all my pieces, and I just didn't want to deal with any of that, so pleating was the only other option. And this is completely because with pleating I never have any of the issues I have with other methods. They always end up nice and flat and workable. There's never sections where they don't have any pleats, and I think they just look better, they look more professionally done, even when they're not professionally done at all, because they're made by me and I don't even know how to sew. Well, I do, but it's all trial and error. Anyways. A pleat is a folding method wherein you double the fabric back on itself and then sew it into place, and you can either do it continuously like I am here, or you can use singular pleats to create shape. For example, at the waist or the ankle, just to nip in excess fabric. For a moment there I actually sounded like I knew what I was talking about. I promise I don't, I've just picked up things from other people that actually know how to sew. Mainly my older sister and my grandma, because they actually know how to sew. Once the ruffles were all secure, I added a little bit of extra detail stitches on the bottom of the shirt, and one more binding piece around the collar. This just makes it actually wearable because it hides all of those little edges that are created by the pleats. And then finally I went in and cropped the sleeves just because they're too long on me, and for this I just cut them off and then did a double rolled hem at the bottom. I did think about adding the light blue binding to these, but I didn't really want to draw any tension to the sleeves, so I just left them as is. And with that, the shirt is actually all finished and I can finally show what it looks like. I'm super happy with how this turned out. I feel like it's just such a unique piece to have in my wardrobe now that really fits my aesthetic. I know for most people this doesn't look very wearable, but for me this actually goes really well into my wardrobe. The only thing is that right now it's really cold out, and this collar, you can't really wear it underneath a jumper. I tried wearing it the other day where I pulled it out of the jumper and just had it going over the top, but because I only wear hoodies, it doesn't really work because the hood gets completely in the way. But if I had more jumpers that didn't have hoods, I could definitely like pull this collar out and just have a little ClownCore collar on any jumper. So I do think it's a little bit more versatile than it probably appears. But yeah, I really hope you liked this piece. It was such a fun thing to create, and I do also hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like down below, comment what else you'd like me to do, and subscribe as I post 2 new videos every single week, and I'd love to see you again. But until then, bye!